topic that I was addressing with the plenary session that I gave yesterday is the advanced stage Hodgkin lymphoma. So this is an illness that affects about 800 to 900 new Canadians each year, and about 40% of them will have stage 3 or stage 4 disease. So it's specifically for that subset of patients. The standard chemotherapy for these patients for many years has been ABVD, a 4-drug combination, and we were trying to integrate the use of a new drug, Adcetris, or brentuximab vedotin, a targeted antibody-drug conjugate for the treatment of those patients. The bottom line is that we were able to successfully combine Adcetris, brentuximab vedotin, with the combination of AVD, leaving the bleomycin out, and demonstrate that it was more effective as a frontline treatment for advanced stage Hodgkin lymphoma, inducing about a 5% increase in the likelihood of a 2-year progression-free survival, and demonstrating further that it was both more potent and still acceptably tolerated for this patient population. So we were quite pleased with the results and think that this constitutes a new frontline regimen that at least can be considered for the treatment of patients with advanced stage Hodgkin lymphoma. I think that these data will affect practice in Canada over time. The agent that we've integrated into the primary treatment is expensive, and so proper pharmacoeconomic analyses are going to have to be conducted to see what the impact on the cancer care system will be. However, the scientific evidence that this is a more effective treatment is now clear, and those proper analyses can be conducted. Over time, I'm confident that agents like this, brentuximab vedotin, will be integrated into the primary treatment of patients with Hodgkin lymphoma, and exactly how the practice community does that will have to be worked out in the near future. The treatment of Hodgkin lymphoma has been a success story for decades, with the large majority of patients today actually cured of their disease. However, that comes at a substantial price, and so we are constantly searching for better ways to treat the disease, inducing higher levels of response to primary treatment and hopefully cure with primary treatment, while balancing that against the toxicity of these treatments. So this is another step forward in that direction. It accomplished 2 purposes. One was to establish that it works better, so that I think is beyond question. It also established, though, that the associated toxicity is of a type that can be managed well, either prevented with measures to improve white blood cell count and resistance to infection, or dose adjustment and modification to minimize the peripheral neuropathy that can accompany the combination of brentuximab with vinblastine, which is present in the new regimen. So we have then in hand a less toxic treatment because bleomycin has been omitted and no longer causes pulmonary toxicity, manageable toxicity, and higher levels of efficacy. Exactly the right ingredients to define a treatment going forward that offers patients a better chance of being cured. Another interesting issue that arose in the analysis of the trial was the lack of clarity as to exactly how frontline regimens should be evaluated for their effectiveness. It's straightforward to tell a frontline regimen has failed if progression or death occurs, but this odd situation in which persistent disease is still present but has not yet progressed was difficult to address in a convincing manner. We worked out what we called a modified progression-free survival, which we think models the way in which this should be done. In previous trials, the specific way to include those patients who have had a failure of their primary treatment but have not yet experienced progression hadn't been adequately addressed by the research community, and I hope that this study inspires that same community to develop a consensus around how that should be conducted.